Hello guys, and welcome back to this new video. So today we are going to talk about the most bizarre riots in history. Specifically, we are going to talk about the 8 most bizarre protests that have happened in history. So let's start immediately and let's dwell on point number 1. So riot number 1, we are in the US and we are in 1855, specifically in Chicago, where we have a beer revolt. Now what is that? The mayor of the time decided to triplicate, to multiply by 3 the price for the license to sell alcohol, and also that led to prohibition of actually the opening of pubs and bars on Sundays. So that community, which was primarily a community of German immigrants, was working at the time 6 days a week, and the only day that was free from work was, of course, Sunday. And it was a German community, and therefore for Germans beer was extremely important. So they started protesting. They protested, and that led to several arrests and some riots. However, nothing really changed except that the next re-election, the mayor wasn't elected, and the new one re-established the old prices for alcohol, and that pubs and bars should have been opened on Sundays. Riot number 2. This is called suit revolt. Now, suit were suits for men. Specifically, they were particular types of suits with very wide jackets and trousers that were large and with a high waist. Now, this particular type of suit was worn by Latinos, right? And it was their distinctive sign. Now, Latinos had been marginalized by the Catholic community and also by the Protestant one. At that time, because of the war, fabrics were rationed like everything else, and therefore this type of clothing was considered anti-patriotic, and that is why we have some assaults to Latinos and discrimination that takes the form of violence against Latinos. So at a certain point, what happened was that the fabrics were considered anti-patriotic, and there were some assaults to Latinos, specifically some men that decided to assault Latinos and to strip Latinos from their clothing. And that concluded with some arrests and some riots of that nature, but nowadays, as a matter of fact, we don't see Latinos wearing suit. Let's then go to riot number 3. That happened in 1904. We are in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, where hygiene became a crucial issue. That is because in Rio de Janeiro at that time there were some infectious diseases that were causing a whole lot of death. Specifically, Rio de Janeiro was infested at the time by tuberculosis, typhus, leprosy, yellow fever, smallpox. So the government at the time decided to go ahead and destroy some old buildings, and protests started, leading to the death of 30 people. Riot number 4. This is the anti-Stravinsky riot. We are in Paris, in France, in 1913, and there is a spectacle, a show put up by Stravinsky. It recounts the story of a sacrificial rite in pagan Russia. The story was weird, but most of all, what was exceptionally weird and exceptionally unusual for the time was that type of music, to the point that that sort of music was considered to be cacophonous. And so naturally what happened was that people started rioting, and people started protesting. Now, this wasn't a true riot in the middle of the street. This was just like people erupting during the show to manifest their disappointment and disapproval of the story and most of all the music, but nothing else besides that happened really. Riot number 6. So we are during the Judaic War, and there is an episode that is recounted by Flavius Joseph, that is a historian of Jewish origin. Basically, the episode narrates the story of a Roman soldier entering the temple, but while being there, rather than being respectful and assisting, witnessing, participating to the mass, this Roman soldier pulled up his dress, showed his bottom, and then made a noise that we can all figure out what that kind of noise was. Of course, some smell came out, and this was considered outrageous for Romans to do that. And so actually this time around started a riot that also had several people dead. Riot number 6. The riot of Nylon. We are in Pittsburgh, so in the US in 1945. And again, that is because of war, and because of the Japanese embargo. The US didn't have so much access to silk at this point in time. And stockings, or women's stockings, were made indeed of silk at the time. And so what happened was that in 1939, silk started lacking. And then stockings were made of nylon, but also nylon had to be rationed because of the war, and it was sold on the black market until there was some availability. At a certain point, there was a promise made public of producing 360 million stockings. However, the production was way lower, and so we have 40,000 people in Pittsburgh queuing in line just to get these stockings, and 30,000 people, 30,000 women, we could definitely say that started protesting when they realized that the stockings made were not enough. That is also why, very interestingly, women who could not afford or did not have stockings decided to start painting little lines on their on the back of their legs in a way that from afar one could think that they were wearing stockings. That is how popular stockings were. Unbelievable if we consider that nowadays they're not so popular. They are, but it's not like it used to be, most definitely. So riot number 7, that has to do with straw hats. So we are in 1922, and of course we are in New York, and there was a prohibition. That was an illegal prohibition. It wasn't written anywhere, but it was like an unsaid, an unspoken rule of sort, where there was a prohibition from September 15th to wear straw hats. So the people sometimes will still wear them. And what happened was that adolescents, teenagers, started to pick the hats exactly from the top of the head of the men wearing them. And so that, specifically in 1922, started a riot between teenagers and people working at the port. That led to some of freedom, meaning that everybody could then most definitely wear the hats that they preferred, right? So that kind of like unspoken rule disappeared. And then finally, riot number 8. This has to do with doctors and doctors in New York, and we are in 1788. So the practice of exhumating the bodies was a very common practice at the time. And until the bodies were of slaves, of mulattoes, of black people, nobody really said anything. Even people that knew were kind of like okay with it. At a certain point though, it spread the news that the body that was exhumed from the grave was that of a white woman, and then hell broke out. There were discovered more than 2,000 mutilated corpses and pieces of corpses in the doctor's rooms. And of course that led to a big riot, establishing that you can't really go around, for you to be a doctor, you can't really go around and exhumating bodies. So much so that to this date is regulated by the law. Now guys, with that being said, this was it. So let us know what you think. Let us know what you think is the most weird riot that we have discussed. And if this was enjoyable, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and we'll talk some more next time. Bye!